Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This is your brother Yasin coming at you inshallah with another halaqah summary from what we spoke about in last week's halaqah. In last week's halaqah we went over ayah number 8 of Surat ul-Bayyinah. And in ayah number 8 of Surat ul-Bayyinah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, جزاؤهم عند ربهم جنات عدن تجري من تحتها الأنهار خالدين فيها أبدا رضي الله عنهم ورضوا عنه ذلك لمن خشي ربه. And so we went word by word as we do and dove into the tafseer and understanding of this ayah very granularly. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward our teacher. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala preserve him. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept from him. And what he spoke about to us was about, first off, we discussed jaza'uhum. And the word jaza'uhum is a compound word. And jaza'uhum, the first half of it is jaza', which means typically, literally would mean reward. And hum is the plural, the plurification of the word jaza', meaning that their reward. And so here, the word jaza' is coming, its synonym of that is thawab. And thawab has two parts, as we've learned, is that thawab can either be a reward or thawab can be a punishment. Of course, in the context of the mu'mineen, and if it is for the mu'mineen, if the thawab is for the mu'mineen, then that is what we are referring to as the reward. If the thawab is for the kafirin and the munafiqeen, then that is what we talk about in the context of it being adhab or punishment. And so in the same way, this is something that, again, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward our teacher. We learned this many years ago when we learned not to say jazakallah, because it's very common in the Indo-Pakistani culture, as well as many Muslim culture in general, not only in the Desi culture, but it's very common that they'll say jazakallah. But when you say jazakallah, what ends up happening is that you leave the jaza to be what, either khair or shar. You either leave it to be good or bad. And so as we just learned, that the jaza is of two types. And so unless you specify, then there is the meaning is left open, and it could potentially mean that may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give you the jaza of shar, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give you bad. And so that's why when you specify and you say jazakallahu khair, you specify and you say that may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give you the khair. And to clarify here, when we say in the translation may Allah, it doesn't refer to as a may Allah as a possibility, that hopefully, that maybe He will give it to you. Here is referring to, no, He will certainly give it to you. Jazakallahu khair. And an important context here is that the word khair is nakira, meaning it doesn't have al-ta'rif, it doesn't have al-khair. It's not jazakallahu al-khair, it's not hul khair, right? And meaning that it's left open. It's left open because it's not a specific type of khair, it's every type of khair. Every type of khair that is available, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give that to you. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give that to you. So that is when we say jazakallahu khair, and of course jazakumullahu khair, and all the other variations of that in the plural context as well. This is what we discuss when we talk about jaza'uhum in ayah number 8 of Surat ul-Bayyinah. After that, we go to the next set of meaning here is jaza'uhum inda rabbihim. And jaza'uhum inda rabbihim, of course Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala could have said jaza'uhum, and their reward is jannat. He could have gone directly to the reward of paradise, and he could have gone to the rest of the ayah. However, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala specifically says here inda rabbihim. And so here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioning how close the mu'mineen are to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because inda rabbihim, that they are their reward is with their Lord. Their reward is close to their Lord. And of course this is a reference, and remember, the best way to do tafsir is with other parts of the Quran, where in Surat al-Tahrim, ayah number 11, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us of the wife of Fir'aun, who said, إِذْ قَالَتْ رَبِّ ابْنِ لِي عِنْدَكَ بَيْتًا فِي الْجَنَّةِ. She didn't say, I want a house in Jannah. She didn't say, I want a bayt fil Jannah. She said, عِنْدَكَ. I want a house next to, near you, subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is also mentioning that He said, عِنْدَ رَبِّهِمْ, close to Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. The reward, jaza'uhum, is the proximity, the connection between the mu'mineen and Him subhanahu wa ta'ala is referred here, عِنْدَ رَبِّهِمْ. And then furthermore, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't say جَزَاؤُهُمْ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ. He did not say that their proximity, that their closeness is close to Allah, which he of course could have said as well. He said رَبِّهِمْ, their Lord. And of course this is a reference to the concept of rububiyyah, the concept of what is the difference between the word Rabb and the word ilah. And we've spoken about this in many years past, and this is a concept that has been ingrained and is a concept deep within the Quran, in that there's a difference between, we say Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. There's a difference between ilah and there's a difference between Rabb. And the Rabb is the one who is the sustainer, it is the provider, it is the one who is the giver. In the same way that the man or the husband or the father is referred to as Rabbul Bayt, is referred to the one who is the Rabb of the home. He is the provider of that. Of course, Lillahi al-Mathal al-A'la, the best example is for him subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so here we understand that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, جَزَاؤُهُمْ عِنْدَ رَبِّهِمْ عِنْدَ رَبِّهِمْ, that they are close, the mu'mineen are close, not as close to Allah, yes, but close to their Rabb, Rabbihim. And so if the reward, the jaza, is coming from the one who is Rabbihim, that is their Lord, who is the giver, is that reward going to be something that is small or big? Is that reward going to be something that is small or big? Is it going to be a great reward, or is it going to be a reward that is inconsequential? Of course, the answer to this question is clear, is that it is Azim al-Ihsan, that it is something that is of great value. That is Jaza'uhum inda Rabbihim. And then we go into the word Jannat. And this is again a concept that we've spoken about in many years past, over 10 years plus, with our teacher, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be pleased with him, in that we spoke about the concept of Jannat. And the joke that we used to say many years ago, or the lighthearted comment that we used to mention, is that don't just make the dua for Jannah, for one singular Jannah. Make dua for the Jannat. Make dua for the Jannat. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that He's going to be giving you Jannat. Not just one Jannah. He's going to be giving you Jannat, which is the plural of that. And so from this we can understand that there are two potential meanings that can come from this. In the first one meaning, from the previous ayah, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, that if there are plural mu'mineen, then each of them can receive one Jannah. Each of them can receive one Jannah. And so therefore it could be that every single one of them receives one Jannah, and as a result the collective amount that they would receive are Jannat. Right? That is one meaning that could happen. This is a usloob, this is a style that is used in the Quran in many places. An example of this in Surat al-Baqarah, ayah number 19, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, يَجْعَلُونَ أَصَابِعَهُمْ فِي آذَانِهِمْ, that they put their fingers inside of their ears. Now, it could be that, now, how many fingers do you have to be able to put in your ears? You don't have 20, 30 fingers, and even then, even if you did have 20, 30 fingers, you're not going to fit 20, 30 fingers inside your ear. You only put one finger. However, this is a example of how the plurification is used inside of the Quran, in the sense of إِنَّ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا. It could be that every single one of the mu'mineen is getting one Jannah, and the collective nature of which is becoming Jannat. That is one potential meaning. The second potential meaning here is that every single one of the mu'mineen is going to get multiple Jannat. Every single one of the mu'mineen is going to get multiple Jannat. And that is the jaza. The multiple Jannat each of one of them is going to get. And this meaning, the second meaning, which we just talked about, that every single person is going to get multiple Jannat, is the one that our teacher, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be pleased with him, he leans towards. Now what is the evidence of this? Of course we cannot have this without evidence. In Surat al-Rahman, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in ayah number 46 says, وَلِمَنْ خَافَ مَقَامَ رَبِّهِ what? جَنَّتَانِ. He says that there's plural Jannat for the one who is خَافَ مَقَامَ رَبِّهِ. So وَلِمَنْ خَافَ مَقَامَ رَبِّهِ جَنَّتَانِ. So this is meaning number 2, and this is the position that it is every single one of the mu'mineen is going to get multiple Jannat. And remember, this is reward عِنْدَ رَبِّهِمْ. This reward is what? عِنْدَ رَبِّهِمْ. And so we understand that, and then now somebody could argue that, okay, this reward, جَزَاؤُهُمْ عِنْدَ رَبِّهِمْ جَنَّاتٍ, that it could be something that is for a temporary period of time. It could be something that is for a short period of time. It could be something that is given and then taken away. However, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the very next word, جَنَّاتُ عَدْنٍ, that it is permanent. That it is permanent, that is not going to disappear. It is not only for a specific period of time, it is permanent. And this is what we call tufidul istiqrar, that it meaning that it is yours. You are the owner of these jannat. That you are the owner, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prepared for you these things. That no one is going to take it from you, and that this is your place of staying. That jannatu adnin. And then of course we go into the next part. تَجْرِي مِن تَحْتِهَا الْأَنْهَارُ تَجْرِي مِن تَحْتِهَا الْأَنْهَارُ. That these, underneath these jannat, تَجْرِي, that there will be running min تَحْتِهَا الْأَنْهَارُ, that there will be rivers that are running underneath these jannat. Now, subhanAllah, this was a very interesting discussion that we had inside of the last week's halaqah, and we spoke about how is it that the rivers are running. The meaning 100% does not click in that regard. How is it that the rivers themselves are running? Typically, when we talk about something that is running in the context of rivers, we talk about how the water flows. We talk about how the water runs. We don't talk about how the rivers run, right? However, if the context had been tajri min tahtiha al-ma, if it had been that the water is running, there is no concept in the mind of every human being how much water there is, because you could say that there's water in a glass, you could say that there's water in the tub, you could say there's water in the sink. So how much water, the scale and the magnitude of the amount of water is not made clear when you say tajri min tahtiha al-ma. However, when you talk about tajri min tahtiha al-anhar, when you talk about rivers specifically, every human being, both in the time of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam as well as today, everyone has a concept of the magnitude, the scale, the grandeur of what a river looks like. And so in that regard, we know that rivers are huge and rivers are massive. And so for that reason, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is presenting here, is showing the magnitude of which is going to be flowing underneath these jannat, is tajri min tahtiha al-anhar, that these are going to be rivers that are flowing underneath all of this. And then after that, khalidina, the plural of khalidin, eternal, again, fiha, meaning that you will be inside of it, khalidina fiha abada, that it is going to be enough, it is going to be enough, it is going to be forever, it is going to be forever, abada, it is going to be forever. And so, subhanAllah, if you look at this, and you say, subhanAllah, look at the level of reward that is jaza'uhum inda rabbihim, jannatu adnin tajri min tahtiha al-anharu khalidina fiha abada. And this is where we understand from Surat al-Rahman, ayah number 60, هل جزاء الإحسان إلا الإحسان. هل جزاء الإحسان إلا الإحسان. Is the reward, is the thawab of khair, jaza al-ihsan, that is ihsan, can it be anything else except ihsan? If you do ihsan in your daily actions, if you are looking to perfect every ibadah that you do towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if you're doing actions that are inside of the dunya and you are doing them with the niyyah that you are looking to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it doesn't mean only salah, it doesn't mean only zakah, because as we've spoken about with the definition of the word ibadah throughout the many years, we've spoken how the word ibadah does not mean worship, it does not mean only the salah and the zakah and the siyam, the hajj and all these things that we typically refer to as quote unquote worship. It's not only that, the ibadah is anything that you do in your entire life that is for the sake of Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. When you work, when you play with your kids, when you study, when you do all of these things, that it is also referred to as ibadah. If you do those things with ihsan, you do them with the proper intention, when you do them for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that you live your entire life for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Inna salati wa nusuki wa mahyaya wa mamati lillahi rabbil alameen. When you do it with ihsan, hal jaza'ul ihsani illa al-ihsan. Is the reward for what you do with ihsan going to be anything other than ihsan? And of course the ihsan is very clear for us. جزاؤهم عند ربهم جنات عدن تجري من تحتها الأنهار خالدين فيها أبدا. And then we come to the next part of this ayah, رضي الله عنهم ورضوا عنه. That رضي الله عنهم, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pleased with them. What does that mean? That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has accepted them as His slave subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the rada, the pleasure, the pleasement can be divided into two parts, as we learned, is that you can have the rada bihi, that you have bihi meaning billahi subhanahu wa ta'ala, that you are pleased with Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is why when we say Raditu billahi rabba in the adhkar of the morning, that when you say that I am pleased with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as my Rabb, I am pleased and satisfied with my choice that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is my Rabb, that what He does for me, that He is my Rabb subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then the second type is the rada anhu, which is whatever He has decided for me, I am happy with. And this is of course referring to the concept of qada and qadar that we have spoken about in past years as well. I'm not going to dive into that here in this summary, but that is something that we have spoken about many times before and we have clarified as well. So you have the rada bihi and the rada anhu, and then of course from an aqeedah perspective, you have to be, if you are not pleased with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, how then is He going to be pleased with you? That you have to be pleased, and that this is your choice, that you choose to be able to be the slave of Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. Of course, this is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about Surat al-Fussilat, ayah number 33. وَمَنْ أَحْسَنُ قَوْلًا مِمَّنْ دَعَا إِلَى اللَّهِ وَعَمِلَ صَالِحًا وَقَالَ إِنَّنِي مِنَ الْمُسْلِمِينَ. That they say, وَقَالَ, and he says, وَقَالَ إِنَّنِي مِنَ الْمُسْلِمِينَ. That he, from his own choice, he is min al-Muslimin. وَلَسَوْفَ يُعْطِيكَ رَبُّكَ فَتَرْضَى. Of course, this is for Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam in Surah Duha, ayah number 5. And so we understand that this is of two parts, radiyallahu anhum wa radu an. Wa radu an, what? That they were pleased with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has decided for them in the dunya and in the akhirah. And then of course we get to the last part of this ayah, ذَلِكَ لِمَنْ خَشِيَ رَبَّهُ. That this is what ذَلِكَ, which is what is referring to here in ذَلِكَ is referring to everything that was prior to this, right? When we talk about عِنْدَ رَبِّهِمْ جَنَّاتُ عَدْنٍ تَجْرِي مِنْ تَحْتِهَا الْأَنْهَارُ خَالِدِينَ فِيهَا أَبَدًا رَضِيَ اللَّهُ عَنْهُمْ. All of this, ذَلِكَ لِمَنْ, ذَلِكَ, all of that was just before, liman is for, meaning that there's an ownership for it, meaning that there is a specific purpose, that all of this is for the ownership. Liman khashiya rabbah is the one who has the khushu' of Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then we dove further into the difference between the word khashiyah and khawf. What is the difference between the two concepts of khushu' and the concept of khawf? The high level summary, the 30,000 foot summary of which being that khashiyah refers to that not only are you having fear of Him, that you're scared from Him being angry, meaning that you do not want to displease Him, meaning that you have the fear of His anger and His displeasement and His punishment, versus the khawf is only the fear of His punishment. And so the khashiyah, the khushu' is the higher level, is that not only are you fearing of His punishment, you are fearing of His displeasement, that you do not want to make Him displeased of you. And of course this higher level is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala refers to in Surah Al-Fussilat, ayah number 28, when He says, إِنَّمَا يَخْشَى اللَّهَ مِنْ عِبَادِهِ الْعُلَمَاء. That the ulama, those who have the ilm of Him subhanahu wa ta'ala, إِنَّمَا يَخْشَى اللَّهَ, that the ones who have the khushu' of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala min ibad is al-ulama, because of the ilm that they have of Him. And of course this is a reference to the fact that seeking ilm will increase your khushu'. Seeking ilm is going to bring you closer to Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so what we understand from this is that the liman is a result of their khushu'. The liman, that they have the ownership of dhalika, all of the things that we spoke about before, is because of the khashiyah that they have from all of the things before. Liman khashiyah, what? Min khashiyah Allah? No, min khashiyah rabbah. Again, the word Rabb here, because the kafirin, they are not thankful to their Rabb in the dunya. They're not thankful of everything that they have given them. However, liman khashiya rabbah, that the mu'mineen are those who are thankful to Him subhanahu wa ta'ala of the Rabb, because He is the sustainer of all of that. And so this is what we talk about in the last ayah of Surat al-Bayyinah, ayah number 8. And of course, inshallah, next week we're going to be going further into, as we spoke about in the beginning of Surat al-Bayyinah, that this surah specifically, Surat al-Bayyinah, surah number 98 in the Quran, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam was ordered to recite this surah specifically to Ubay ibn Ka'b radiyallahu anhu. And so we've touched on a number of reasons why that may be the case throughout this surah. However, next week we're going to summarize and wrap it as to why this surah specifically was Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam commanded to recite to Ubay ibn Ka'b radiyallahu anhu. And inshallah I will record another summary to be able to reference for what that might be the case. But in regards to the actual wrapping of ayah number 8, this is the summary of what we discussed about last week. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept from us. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bring us closer to Him. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to increase us in our ilm of the Quran and increase us in our love of Him subhanahu wa ta'ala, and make us amongst those who are جزاؤهم عند ربهم جنات عدن تجري من تحتها الأنهار خالدين فيها أبدا رضي الله عنهم ورضوا عنه. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us amongst them. ذلك لمن خشي ربه. جزاكم الله خير. This is your brother Yasin checking out. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.